You know what? It has just occurred to me that women have always been spoken to callously when they do things that are considered mistakes. And spoken to is when there's kindness. I don't know how that skipped me, because it's an obvious fundamental something of understanding human societies and their relationship to women. There isn't much grace for women. I guess the specific context I was talking about was the context of the language is about healing, the language is about doing better when you know better, the language is educational, the language is coming from people who think they really are helping and who think they're a girl's girl or they are a sister's keeper. And then it is still condescending and unkind and belittling, and it looks down on the woman, and it makes it clear that there is a level of intelligence she clearly just didn't have, or a kind of sight that she didn't have. And it's true that she likely didn't, but not having sight is not a crime. It's not even wrong, because you can only see what you have capacity to see, and that's true in all of life. It's why people wear glasses. It's why some people are blind. It's why in some situations in life you need aids, so you need glasses or the equivalent of glasses, and in others you're totally blind. You can only see what you have capacity to see. And there, even the concept of hindsight being 2020 is honestly a little false, because you still can only have capacity for what you have capacity for in hindsight. Like, you can only see what you have capacity for in hindsight. Even there are times, many times, when people have said things to me, especially in my years as a therapist, and people would say things to me, and of course a lot of what they would be describing would be things that happened in their past, their childhoods, or in their marriages. You know, sometimes the past is last week, and sometimes it's in the first year of marriage, and on, or when they were dating, or at work, or, you know, any number of places and situations. And they're telling me things that happened, and so they're telling me things from memory. And even as they're talking, by virtue of being a therapist, there are perspectives I have that they don't. Let me give you an example, because this particular client, I'm sure, wouldn't mind me sharing this. And also it's been maybe 5 or 6 years since it was said. But one time, a client of mine was telling me about going through the 2008 recession and how it altered the direction of their lives, because the recession happened at the beginning of their career, and there was a job and a market they were hoping to get into that they ended up not being able to get into. And for quite some time, they'd carried a despondency about what the economic options that they'd grown up knowing were available and then suddenly were not, had meant for them. And there was a sense of failure, that they hadn't been able to secure a job, or they hadn't been able to do this, that, and the other. And that 2008 economic crisis felt like a hinge upon which the door of their career ended up swinging or one of the hinges, because most doors have about 3. And who says they all have to be built at the same time? And so I listened, and then I asked them, but what makes you think that whatever stage of that career or whatever stage of the economy you walked into, you would still not have had to experience it? Because they felt they left one nation that they thought maybe they would have had better chances at prospering in, and came to another nation and influenced by that recession, but feeling that they wish things were different. And I was looking at it from a point of, a recession is an equal opportunity frustrator. And so it's not personal. It's not you. Had you stayed, you would still have had to deal with the effects of that recession in that country and in your industry, because your industry was one of the ones that ended up taking a bit of a hit. And people, especially if you're working in an anxious economy, I find, and this is one of my little theories on life, I find that cultures that do not value restraint and are therefore comfortable with being loud and wrong, because what's more important is self-expression, those cultures are also very anxious cultures, and often self-edit and correct and change direction too quickly. I don't know if I'm making sense, but, well, I'm making sense to myself. That's what matters. But I find, I'll give America as an example. I find that because that culture, or one of the contributors to the knee-jerk reaction, is that is a culture of continuous self-assessment, of self-expression. Talk and talk and talk and talk, and at the top of your voice, and make everybody else have to accommodate you, suck up their air and feel no guilt, because what's important is that you got what was inside of you out of you, and you shouldn't care how you're perceived. You should care that you felt good saying and doing a thing. And I have strong feelings that are loosely held about that way of doing things. And I also fully recognize that the reason I do is my culture, and especially the micro culture. The macro is, yes, conservative, but the micro culture that raised me was incredibly conservative on many issues, and especially on self-expression. So and then also there's the Capricorn and 12th house placements and all of those things. And Scorpio placements. My chart is well geared towards mystery. So there's a part of me, I guess, that just naturally leans that way. And then I was raised in a culture that also deeply encourages a certain kind of silence around or about many issues, and a certain kind of temperance. And I've found that when cultures that do not value that kind of restraint and temperance are faced with any small thing, their economies are also more volatile, because eventually the statistics are real life people. So if you're telling your real life person that the market is crashing and everything in their culture is reactionary and openly expressive, then the immediate expected course of action is that everybody is going to just throw their voice into the airspace and do the thing that protects themselves first. There isn't the temperance to watch, to observe. And so I was telling this person, it means that had you stayed in a country like that, because America is not the only country, but if you had stayed in a country like that, then it means you would have been building a career in an economy that is emotionally volatile and in a culture that values emotional volatility. I don't know that would have been a good thing for you. And I could see the change happen in how they'd been looking at the course of their life as I was speaking. I could say that because I had years of being a therapist, to be able to see things or to be able to help people see where it's personal and where it's not. I'm certain that if I did not have the years of being a therapist behind me, I would not have seen it. I'm also certain that if I would have been in that exact situation, I would have eventually seen it. Because, I mean, if you have the propensity to go and become a therapist, you generally have the propensity to question the human condition a little bit. So there's likelihood I would have ended up seeing it. But I don't know that I'd have seen it immediately like that. I'm certain I wouldn't, actually. It would have taken me some time. And that's what I mean when I say I feel we need to be more gracious to women. We need to be gracious to women for the fact that all the things that are happening are equal opportunity frustrators, but they are not equal impact frustrators. The opportunity to frustrate might be spread evenly across, but the points of impact of that frustration are exponentially more when it comes to women than they are for men. And like I was saying in the previous episode about this topic, when people are faced with situations or information about situations where they immediately can sense the loss, the grief, the shame, the guilt, or situations that would immediately bring out those emotions within them, there is a tendency to want to shut that shit down, because if you don't look at it, then it's not coming any closer to you. The more you hear about it, the more of a possibility it becomes in your mind, and so the closer it comes to you internally, the more there's room to consider it, and so the more there's room to feel these things that are uncomfortable, or the more time you have to feel these things that are uncomfortable, and sometimes you just don't want to think about those things, so there's a tendency to shut them down quickly. And I find that there's also the fact that because women, or the state of womanhood in and of itself, is precarious and therefore dangerous to exist in, and therefore vulnerable, there's a tendency to scream at women and to shout at them and to remind them that, you don't get that many chances, so you have to play these cards right. Except if the cards involve men, there is no way to fully play them right. Men will stain your white for no reason other than to stain your white. And some of it is, like I said, genuine human mistake. Some of it is jealousy. Some of it is the fact that we expect an intelligence and a leadership out of men that is impossible for them to possess, and so they walk through life insecure and always trying to prove themselves. There's nothing within them that can measure up, and they already know that. And so they just, move through life like there's nothing within them that can measure up, and they know. The men that we look at and think of as the ideal man are very few and far between. And I always tell women to remember that the average woman is a great, exceptional man. An exceptional man, emotionally, mentally, is an average woman. And sometimes it's a woman who's considered to not even be kind or sweet enough, Sometimes it's a bitchy woman, and that's an exceptional man. Or a woman who's considered, let me say that, a woman who's considered bitchy. And another thing the thing that made me record the second part of this is the fact that because of that vulnerability and that precariousness, we tend to discard women, at least in our speech. Practically, it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, women will have 3 children, and a man will look at her and her 3 children and say, that is who I want, and those are, I'm going to adopt all those children, and we'll have ourselves a good time. So practically, it doesn't always translate, but when we're talking, because the point is how we're talking to women, when we're talking to women, we tend to remind them based off of purity culture. And when I was younger, I used to associate purity culture a lot with the church, and then I realized purity culture is cultural in nearly every culture. Where there's patriarchy, there's purity culture, and patriarchy is not a necessarily Christian concept. It's a human concept, and there are many reasons why the last few thousand years of human survival have required that men, and the word require here is doing exactly the kind of heavy lifting that you think it is. But there are many reasons why the past few thousand years of human history have required that men be prioritized in unnatural ways. Anyway, that precariousness combined with the patriarchy and the shame and the internalized shame and purity culture, that cocktail also produces another reaction, and it is to treat a woman who has or to speak of a woman who has made certain mistakes as already damaged goods. You know, it's a damaged goods concept. It's, oh, you know, you have 2 children out of wedlock. Nobody should want you now. And if nobody should want you now, we're going to remind you that you were stupid to get pregnant when you were 21 or 18 or 16 or, you know, 35 without a husband. Like, how is a big woman like you getting married not sensible enough to get married and have children? You know, why are you getting babies and all of those things? You know, marry before you carry, and all the little statements that are made that are supposed to tell women, you should be smarter than that. And I understand it, like I keep saying, I understand the social reasons and the societal fabric upon which we are expecting ourselves, or with which the societal fabric with which we are expecting ourselves to carry the water of the human condition. Which is to say, I understand where it's leaking. But I still feel that because women are in a naturally precarious and vulnerable place, then the language should be kinder. It is for that same reason that the language should be gentler, should be more humane. Women deserve to be spoken to with full acknowledgement of their dignity, with full understanding that their lack of agency is often as a result of circumstances and years of brainwashing. That it's okay for you to feel it could never be you. I don't think it's okay to further burden a woman who already has burdens with it. Yes, it could never be you. You are right. I mean, you believe you will make the best decisions, you will marry once and you will marry right. You're right. I can't argue with you. I can't argue with your manifestations for your own life. I shouldn't. To be honest, there is no reason to. You do deserve to see yourself in the light that you consider the best possible. Absolutely. See yourself that way. See yourself as a wife whose marriage works out, because that's important. It's important to even energetically put out that as the baseline for how you wish your life to go. It's important to make it clear to yourself and to the universe that what you consider the default is beautiful experiences for yourself. Even when they're normal experiences, like I was saying in the last episode, even when they're completely normal, completely everyday experiences, because the normal and the everyday doesn't have to be disrespectful or devoid of dignity. It can be a gentle, beautiful, blissful experience to be able to, and maybe I'm talking as a Kenyan because Kenyans write songs that are our everyday life is beautiful. I'm thinking of Chai Sakumi as I'm talking. It's a song I think if you're not Kenyan, you should search for and give a listen. Or if you haven't heard it, you should search for and give a listen. So, yes, you deserve all those good things and all those beautiful things. You deserve a love that can be depended on, or a marriage, because sometimes it isn't always a love marriage, but it is a marriage that can be depended on, a spouse that shows up, that makes the road easier, that makes the fulfillment of your honest desires for children and a partner to walk through life with I don't know, I forgot the first part of my statement, so I don't know how I was going to round that off, but you deserve the best of that. I don't know anymore how I was going to round that off. You deserve it, and go for it, and think of yourself. Think well of yourself. Think the best of yourself. Whenever you're thinking, I don't see why in your own mind you should be thinking less of you or for you. No, think very well of yourself. At the same time, afford everyone who's not where you are in your own assessment the silence they need to get there. We forget that in the same way we needed to be given a map, such as a guiding hand, and then the room to navigate in our own way, so that we can get to destinations that are truly ours and as ourselves, because there's a tendency to expect that if you're getting to a destination, then the destination has to be socially approved, and the person who's getting there also has to be socially approved. So you're lucky if who you are is a socially approved kind of person, and you have some work to do if you naturally don't fall within that category. I don't know how you people do it, because honestly speaking, I don't know. I think I accepted that I'm a misfit years ago and just never bothered to undo that. I accepted it very young. I'm a misfit. And it's okay. And I don't need recruits. I can just be my own kind of misfit, and I don't even need to accept other people's misfit in order to feel like mine is valid, or like I have a right. No. Which is why I'm saying we can accept that people are doing things, or rather the point for me is we can accept that people are doing things in ways we wouldn't do them, and still find within ourselves the ability to speak to them respectfully, and the ability to speak to them gently, and the ability to speak to them kindly, and the ability to have the politeness and the temperance and the sense of allyship with another's dignity that is needed to be quiet when they're figuring it out. To not make their figuring it out about listening to our instructions. To not force or impose our opinion, even as we offer maybe a lantern with our words, maybe a flashlight that they can carry, or maybe they like the dark and their eyes are used to it and they know their way around somehow, and we can't see that. Or maybe the dark is comfortable because they can't see in it. To see is sometimes blinding and painful, and they'd rather not. And we could tell them how they're doing themselves a disservice by not seeing, but we don't know that for sure. But to be honest, we don't know that for sure. Sit and think about it. We don't know for sure, like without any shadow of a doubt, that having the eyes to see all the ways in which things are going wrong in your life, or things need to be edited in your life, is a good thing. And I'll say this as a person who will likely drop an episode that will sound very condescending, but the reason I wrote that character that way is because that was part of her dysfunction. Anyway, I'll let you decide. I don't see why I should be telling you what to think about a thing that you don't even know exists yet. When it drops, you'll decide how you feel about it your own way. But the point is, I feel we should be kinder to women. We shouldn't, especially as fellow women, I feel we shouldn't be the ones who use our therapy and healing language and psychobubble to tell women they're used goods and, oh, they were dumb making X and Y decision, or why would they let such a thing happen? And I completely understand boy craziness, to be honest. I don't agree with it. But I feel part of the reason it manifests the way it does is because there's also too much shame around wanting men for women. So many women are taught that any kind of desire they have for a man is desperation. That it's not an active choice of a free agent. It is a desperate work of a a girl with loose morals. And it is disgusting and embarrassing. Embarrassing for the woman and disgusting for the person who is on the receiving end of this desire, and for the rest of society, or in the rest of society's eyes. So there's a lot of shame that comes with what is natural to women. It isn't, I personally believe that it isn't that men have a particularly higher libido than women. It is that men are expected to perform their interest in women a certain way, and women are expected to perform disinterests in men a certain way. And the social cost for men not being hypersexual is a questioning of their sexual orientation and therefore their masculinity, and the cost of women being comfortable in their sexuality is often an invitation to scrutiny of their morals, and in some cases violence, in an attempt to, shut it down. And the violence often comes from older women, because for them the point is to shut it down. The shut it down violence often comes from older women because, like I said, they would be ashamed if they were publicly sexy, for example. And so they look down on women who, for example, dress well or wear makeup or take care of themselves in a certain kind of way or can put together a certain kind of attractiveness. There's a tendency amongst older women, and especially older women who have chosen a frumpy conservatism, because conservatism isn't always frumpy. But for those who have chosen a frumpy conservatism, there's a tendency to be very violent towards women who, and especially younger women, because there's the social protection of older women aren't questioned too much about how they mistreat younger women. And so they can live out their best criminal lives as mothers and aunties and caregivers. Anyway, frumpily conservative women can be vicious to younger women. And part of that reason is, or one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is that they themselves are ashamed of their own sexuality and they treat their own sexuality as a thing of shame and their own desires as a thing of shame. It's also why frumpily conservative women treat women who, for example, want the finer things in life or will choose a man of means as being unintelligent or lazy or unrealistic or like they're terrible people. Like, there's a disdain they have for them and a sense that they are morally superior because they work harder. I remember one time, this friend I used to have, in the episode about friendships, the second one, same girl, she was talking about people who had help at home, women who had help at home, like domestic help. And so her language was, why wouldn't you want to do things for yourself? Why wouldn't you want to do everything for yourself? But that's because she's married to the kind of person who had never had a single meal prepared by a house girl or, well, a domestic manager or a chef or whatever, you know, a hired hand. Never once in that home had that happened. And so to her, her exhaustion or was to be ignored because, you know, she's passionate about cooking and so she loves to do it. And so she doesn't understand why other women could be so lazy. And she said a lot of things, such as how, you know, in some of those homes she would visit, because she was talking about a situation where she was a foreigner. She was talking about how in some of the homes she would visit, or some of the wives she'd encountered, on Sunday morning when it's just them and the kids, they would be looking through a list of restaurants posted in the kitchen, trying to find where to order from or where to go for breakfast, because the wife just couldn't put together any kind of breakfast. And so she felt the need to tell them how they are. No, not tell them, talk about them as though they are very lazy, as though they're not woman enough. And that's a response to that response comes from internalized patriarchy and the internalized misogyny of feeling that if I am fulfilling the things, or if I'm doing the things that men say, or if I'm working hard in the ways men approve of, and I'm doing the things men say they prefer in a woman, and especially men who are considered good men, Christian, upright in the sense that he doesn't drink much, doesn't smoke, is home every night type of situation. So if I'm the type of woman that such a man is married to or likes, then I should have the right to criticize how other people do their marriage and how other women create ease for themselves, because as you can see, I'm working hard. Why shouldn't you? Anyway, even for that woman, I will have grace and say it's where she's at, and she's seeing what she's seeing the way she's seeing it, because it's what she has capacity to see. I think it's important to I feel it's very important to create spaces in public consciousness where women have as many chances as possible. I think it's right that in our language, we try our best to create spaces for women, or social space for women to have as many chances as possible, because that's not something girls have right now. You have been listening to me, Sahiba Monet. This is Sheila Sophia, the podcast. See you the next time I feel like saying something.